Everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present with such potent and brilliant panelists. Thank you, Dr. Meir and Dr. Sank, and thank you, Famous, and thank you, Morgan. I so appreciate being here in conversation with you about mourning and making during the pandemic. So Michael and I are talking about access responsibility and considering what it meant to grieve and gather during COVID, and gather meaning gather materials, gather people together. So on screen we've got like some maybe flower petal looking light and dark blue background with some golden tree trunk-esque sort of decorative situation. It is a common background that we have taken up for this occurrence. My email is also on screen, stokesj5@msu.edu, and so is Michael's stokesm7@msu.edu. So I have red hair and a green walking stick. I am not known for being quick, but colorful, definitely. I'm a PhD candidate here at Michigan State University, and I am on screen holding that green walking stick with purple lipstick and a very colorful as often like shirt situation and bow tie, and I'll give it over to Michael to self-describe too.
I'm a large white man with brown hair, currently bedecked with a butterfly. I'm wearing a purple shirt and a bow tie. I usually identify as a sci-fi buff. Who is not buff?
So we are the co-founders and co-directors of Hives, which is a research workshop and speaker series. And through Hives, we've thought about what it means to think about disability and in relation. I came to MSU, I was in the English department. I really wanted to do work in disability. I myself am disabled. I'm a disabled curator. I'm a disabled poet. I bring this kind of experience of disability into what I do, whether using a wheelchair and having to read the ground for like where I might tip, or using my green walking stick and having to answer to people who think I'm a wizard. I am sort of constantly in conversation about what it means to be disabled and magical. And so I sort of bring that into what I do, and I wanted to not do that alone, but to do it in community, in relationship, to continue to build that kind of space. And so we founded Hives, and we've got a logo here that looks like a beehive situation on screen. And we founded Hives thinking about bumps on skin. We made it all capital letters because we thought then it would look bumpy, but then everyone just thinks it's an acronym. So confusing, confusing, messy, and kind of in my own experience of disabled movement through the world. And then this Hive, like really hoping, kind of aspirationally dreaming that we could create that kind of hive of connection, relation here at Michigan State. And so we've done different years with particular focuses. We focused on disability, race, and performance, disability in animal studies, and disability in speculation. And so these are our themes for the year, right? That like we bring in speakers to talk about these themes, and we talk about them with each other. We have viewings, we have big conversations here at Michigan State. The we varies, like sometimes we really need hardcore our access materials of CART and ASL. Sometimes we're in an audience of like 4 of us, and one disabled student is in their very first disabled space ever and just comes to us afterwards to be like, oh, I could sit on the floor, like I could move in ways that are not like using the classroom space in a kind of more traditional fashion. Like this space of being together has opened up something for me, even when it's a kind of small event. And then with our zine, we wanted to bring together the kind of openness that Hives has had as an organization to the construction of a bunch of poetry, prose, art, performance pieces, all sorts of different sort of ways in which people are thinking about our theme for a particular year. So zines as a genre have this history in feminist punk scenes as being a kind of radically accessible. You're making it with like shitty printer paper or newspapers that you're cutting up and putting it onto a document and then circulating it at a punk show. It's cheap materials that are on hand going out in this particular context. So radically accessible in some ways as in material costs. But what does it mean to use the same like premise of radical accessibility to also think about disability accessibility in constructing a zine? And so that's what we've tried to do with our Buzz-Zine project. On screen are some bees, some cut up letters of Buzz-Zine from various magazine covers of different sizes and shapes, and then information about the sort of Buzz-Zine submission process. So then, okay, one premise of accessibility is accessibility as universal design. You have this word universal though. As a poet, I find an immediate skepticism of, maybe like Dr. Mears' skepticism of empathy. I wonder, universal, are we imagining one kind of person that this is going to hit? Like, how do we actually construct something that accommodates and accounts for the differences that have been a kind of theme of this conference? We've talked about the differences of impact in the pandemic, and there's also the differences of processing the written word in a zine. And so we have done a wide variety of approaches to access instead of thinking that with one approach we can account for all forms of accessibility. So we've had that printed material zine where you can hold it in your hands, and if you're someone who has a visual dependency, you can remember what particular part of visual dependency, harkening back to Georgina's talk last night, you can remember like maybe on that left-hand page, I saw that sentence. And then we also have a digital version. We have a screen reader friendly version, we have a Braille edition, and we have it up on our webpage. And we found these multiple points of access make space for the various ways of existing in our community. And so, particularly during the pandemic, our theme was on disability, race, and performance. We were co-curating the zine with Gita Carell and with Ames Logi, and we put out a call thinking about these concepts in relation. And as the pandemic was approaching, a lot of people actually turned to disabled people, disabled thinkers, for how to make their classrooms accessible. So Amy Hamre put out some of the first materials that got circulated around the internet. Dr. Amy Hamre, who is a disabled thinker, and their work in making classrooms accessible was circulated very widely. Disabled community has been accommodating for different ways of being and existing in the world, and for some people, the way that they got to exist during the pandemic was more accessible. As we've talked about here, for some people it was a time of deep harm and sorrow and inaccessibility, as Dr. Fox talked about, that lack of ability to be present and in person, so painful for others. And so as we sort of imagined how to hold this multiplicity, a zine that had many different voices in and outside of academia, many different images, etc., became something deeply important to us. And on screen is Chanika Svetvilis's piece that became our cover for the zine. I'm going to pull up the information about it now. So the piece was called "We Will Not Be Silent," and Chanika wrote the image description herself. She says, "My gaping mouth fills the entire page of lightly lined paper as I bare my crooked teeth. At the back of the mouth in caps and reversed is an exit sign. In front of the mouth are 3 lines of heavy barbed wire centered in the front of the mouth. And so Svedbilis's work is grounded in thinking about mental health, about immigration, and in this moment where people could not travel, where the immigration responses were becoming more and more punitive, horrific, the horrors of which we've spent time with today, Janaka was thinking about what it means to try to have something exit the mouth, to try to have it move forward. That exit sign is reversed, so imagining the sound within coming out to say something, to sort of respond at that moment, and her own mouth with crooked teeth that she draws attention to over and over again in her art, that's sometimes about the pills that she's been made to swallow that aren't addressing the kind of experiences that she's having at any given moment, to hold it there and to think about what it means to try to say something. And so these image descriptions were co-created with the artists. We put out a call for image descriptions as part of our response once we accept people's work. And then if folks don't know how to do it, we're teaching that. We're creating the kind of community that we want to see, that we want to have, that we want to make together.
Thank you so much. How are we doing on time? 2 minutes. All right. So I will do this as quickly and as ethicably as I can. On the screen there is one of the 9 entries for Works in Rough Going, Communicating During the Pandemic. This is one of the pieces that is available in Scene Metro Space in downtown East Lansing right now. The image shows a goldfish in a bag, and it says, "Have they moved you to the ICU?" in one communication message. And then, yeah, it's on a COVID floor. We're all in glass rooms. Floor, asterisk for correction. And this is some of the work that Hives consulted on with Creativity in the Time of COVID and the establishment of the database at creativityandcovid19.org is considering what it means to hold on to these objects that were created during this ongoing pandemic and what information is stored. Because all too often, information as it is stripped from art becomes solely categorical. And instead of only having the type of image it is, the subject, date, and title, these entries in the database also include the image description and then an extended description from the artist's own statement of what the work is, what informed the work, and what was going on at the time of its creation.
How was it submitted in 1970?
That is a great question.
That is not, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have to revisit that one.
Time wizards.
I told you about the staff.
But yes, we're going to have to revisit that field. I appreciate it. It was created October 8th, 2024, so traveled backwards in time 54 years and a few months. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, we appreciated being here with you, and now the students are going to take our space up here and come share the work that they have done to make this archive and this day happen.